Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Phil Rice. Welcome to Thread to Threshold. And you're joining us live on Monday, 29th of June, 2020. And welcome also to the YouTube watchers, BitChute watchers who will be watching this following on. And I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's been supporting the show so far. I've been really enjoying this, and I've got lots more cool guests lined up. But today, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome Stephen and Evan Strong, a couple of my Aussie cobbers from across the ditch here, who are going to be sharing some stuff now. As we know, like most of the, if you're into ancient history conversations, prophecy, and these things, this show is really going to be quite interesting, I think, because most of what we hear about tends to come from the Northern Hemisphere, from certain other giant land masses. And it turns out there's actually quite a lot happening here down under the underside of the planet, if you'd like to say. And this is a story that doesn't get told enough. And, you know, our Australian brothers and sisters, as well as here in New Zealand, there is so much information that is not getting out there. And so it's my great pleasure to welcome Stephen and Evan Strong. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me today.
It's a pleasure, Phil. Thank you for asking us on for our first venture into New Zealand. We're quite excited.
Here we are, actually.
Yeah, it's good fun.
Awesome. Well, that even adds even a little bit more to this for me as well. And you know, I remember when I was getting really stuck into ancient civilization stuff many years ago. I had a break from it to focus on some other things, but I realized just how important this is. And because, you know, knowing what has happened before, we can learn from the past about where we're going, because it seems that the trajectory we're on at the moment has kind of almost happened before, in a sense. And in a sense, we are almost like reliving certain aspects of history. And so now, gentlemen, you know, I'd really just love, you've got so much to share, and you've got some really cool, amazing stuff. And, you know, this stems into the world of science, spirituality, into prophecy, and there's so much to explore. And so Stephen and Evan Strong, please, I'd really love you guys just to take it away. And, you know, what's going on right now? Tell me what's going on.
So many things.
Well, there are. Look, I suppose the best way to do this is to start from the end point, which is what we're working towards, and then go backwards from there. We tend to do things slightly different than a lot of other people in this country, insofar as we find science to back up the esoteric, whereas most people who do science don't even know the esoteric links in with it. So that's been part of our brief. Whether we find skulls, rocks, metal objects that shouldn't be in this country, the first thing we look at is why doesn't it fit into our accepted historical lies that we've been given about our past. And I think it's really important. You said something at the start I think we should focus on a bit, Phil, when you made the point it was something Winston Churchill, who was no great left-wing philosopher, let's be honest. I mean, he was a fantastic racist when it came to Indians and Pakistanis, but within all of that, he said one thing that we should focus on. He said that if a people have lost their history, if they don't understand their history and where they've come from, they will never find where they should go. They'll never work out what to do, because if our history has been stolen, we have nothing to draw on from the past to set us for the future. And also, if our history has been stolen, like you said, and if we've had earlier civilizations that have collapsed and fallen into disrepair, and then we dragged ourselves out of that and then gone back down again and done it time after time, we need to know that, but we don't. So there is a real issue with that. But I suppose if we want to start where we're going, which is why we're talking today, and we've got an online conference coming up, it relates to a series of prophecies we've been given over, what, 3 years now?
Yeah, little bits here, there, and it slowly builds on top of each other until there's a complete story.
And what I don't want to do is give all of it up now, because if we do everything now, then Phil, there's no need for anyone to come on to our online conference, is there? Because we've given away the conclusion. But I also want to make sure that people feel like it's worthwhile finding out what this is. So what I'd like to do is to share with you how this prophecy started. And having said that, I want to make a point. The person is, in fact, he rang us about 3 or 4 days ago, didn't he? Brendan Murray, what's his original name? Unicoi, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. I want to share what he said at the very beginning. And I want to make, when we do this, I want to make sure people understand that when we share this prophecy, when it came from Brendan was relating information that came from Uluru. So there's 1 degree of separation there. And what tends to happen, I'm sure you know this, Phil, that when things are separated by pieces, like one person tells another person, normally something gets lost or misunderstood in translation. So when I share this first prophecy, let me explain to you that there are a couple of details we've found out from the people who are conducting this ceremony, that what Brendan said was right if time is circular. If his time is linear, he made a couple of mistakes with his timing, didn't he? But remember, ladies and gentlemen, there are many people who don't believe that time is linear, then it's circular. And if it is circular, then Brendan's made no mistakes with his timing and just made a couple of errors with a couple of words. But having said that, what he primarily said is still right. So after that equivocation, because there are some changes to that, let me explain how this all began. And this is why all our presentations this year are geared towards December the 21st, 9 p.m. That is our line in the sand. Now, I'm going to make a point at the start before we go, Phil, that it may well be that what all these blackfellas have told us is wrong. It could be, it's just pure wishful thinking, isn't it? Wouldn't it be wonderful if?
Which you can't blame them for, really.
You can't blame them for that, but I'm going to make a point at the start. If it's wrong, we can still make it right anyway. If humans wanted to change something, they can. I was here for the Vietnam War when the marchers went in the streets, and we did change it. Humans can still do that, so it doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. What I can tell you is, from a philosophical and ethical or moral viewpoint, it's beautifully right. So, after 2 equivocations, now let's talk about the prophecy. The prophecy starts like this, Phil. When I was rung about 3 years ago, Brendan started by asking me what I knew about Uluru, which some people mistakenly called Ayers Rock, named after a white fella, but it's Uluru. That's its proper name. Never been there. Didn't know a thing about the place, because we don't go onto country until we get an invitation from an elder. We're not the sort of people who walk onto someone's country, because I'm a black fella, and Evan is too, because I am. You can't go onto country old way and just turn up there. Someone must invite you onto country. And in the old ways, when you went onto another tribal land, you would stand on a hill somewhere and wait for someone to come up to that hill and to escort you down to meet others. And that's how we do it. Okay, so what did Brendan tell me? He told me that there was a change coming. And I remember 3 years ago, he told me it was 2020. And I said, Brendan, I'm not doing times with prophecies. It never works. But he insisted on 2020, didn't he? They all did. And up until halfway through this year, I refused to even give a number. But I will now. And I'll give a time and a date, which I've done. He said that they are coming. And of course, you've got to remember something. When you talk with elders, they're very, very cryptic, and you've got to get specifics out of them. So we spent a bit of time trying to work out who the hell they were. It turned out he's referring to the Pleiadians. I'm sure most of your viewers are aware of where that is. I can tell you the Australian Museum will have nothing to do with us, will they? Tessa Corkill said, why? Because we believe in the Pleiades. And I've been quite open about this. Yes, I believe the Pleiades exist. But anyway, Australian Museum don't.
Well, it's a constellation in the sky.
Yes, but they said we believe in it, therefore we shouldn't be listened to.
That helps me with that.
No, she said we should not be listened to because we believe in the Pleiades. Well, we do, because through the whole of Australia, there's only one dreaming story that goes across all 500 tribes, and it's the Seven Sisters. And Phil, guess where the Seven Sisters come from? As you know, they come from the Pleiades. And every story in Australia talks about them coming. So what he said was they're coming back. I said, what do you mean, Brendan? What do you mean they're coming back? He said they're going to come back in a ship, a mother ship, that's going to hover above Uluru. Now, I've had others say, no, not hover, land. And then some say, no, it's a hover. Well, to me, that really doesn't make any difference. Let's just say there's supposed to be a ship somewhere close to Uluru. Now, the story is, and this is correct, sort of, isn't it? They have within them, they have an object. And the elders have even given it a name. Evan, what's the name they call it, please?
Magic box.
But can I tell people, if you go to Uluru looking for a pirate's box, don't bother. It's not a box as in a box. Well, actually, what it is, it's a box in the form of a rock. Now, Uluru is a big rock, and around it are other rocks. In fact, that's all that's there. So knowing that there's a box somewhere when it's shaped like a rock is not a great deal of help for a person who decides I'm going to find it. You won't. So what's in the box? Sounds like an actually quiz show, doesn't it? What's in the box? From my understanding, and I'm a bit vague on this one, what I've been told, it sounds like there are special crystals from the Pleiades were placed inside this box to accommodate a time when the final change took place on this planet. Okay. Now, very simply, what Brendan told me was that there will be a ship that comes here and the box will be turned on. But here's the trick. Yes, it can be turned on. We know how that's going to happen. And I can't tell you that now, unfortunately, because there's some things I can't tell you because there are people who don't want this to happen. It will be turned on, but it doesn't mean a thing. Because my understanding is they've spoken about an area which is called whatever. You heard this is a recent one, isn't it? We got that recently, the Rainbow.
Oh, the Rainbow Bridge.
The Rainbow Bridge. Now, what shocked me was, and it's important I tell you about this, we assumed that when Uluru was going to be turned on, the energy was going to go to 5 sites in Australia, and we knew some of the sites. But we were slightly wrong with that, weren't we?
Yeah.
It's 6. 5 in Australia, and 1 must go across the Rainbow Ridge. And we only found out what the Rainbow Ridge, it's the ridge that holds Australia and New Zealand together. So when the world is turned on, it is 6 sites, 5 in Australia, and 1 on one of your 2 islands in New Zealand. I'll be honest with you, Phil, I don't know which one. We only just found out about this. This is quite new, the New Zealand part of this. And I thought, since we're talking New Zealand, we better mention your mob,
the New Zealand part,
because you're part of this.
Yeah.
Now, when they're turned on, then that will then turn on the rest of the world. It'll be like a spider web where the ley lines will run throughout the whole world. And what then happens is, if the box is turned on, the planet vibrates. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of people in New Zealand, maybe not all of you, are aware of what's called the Schumann resonance, which is a measurement of the vibration of this planet. Now, it normally sits around 7 and 8, but people may be aware of the fact it's gone up to 140, 130, then it goes back down. We are told when this box is turned on and the ley lines start to spread through the whole of this planet, it will stay at 150, 200 forever and never drop down. And that will be the change. Now, what we've been told is this: the Earth is going to clean itself. It will cleanse itself, and it's doing it now. There's 2 ways to go: the elegant way, which is what we're talking about, and the other way. And the other way is big lots of water, straight out of a Hollywood movie with a monk on the top of the bill and a wave coming over the top. It'll be that.
Yeah, fighting over cans of baked beans.
Yeah.
That kind of situation.
It will be absolute chaos, and within 3 years, the planet, as you know, North Pole is somewhere near Siberia, making its way down to China. It can't continue doing that. This is supposed to be the way the Earth can clean itself from within and right its own imbalance caused by us. Me personally, I feel like I'm quite comfortable with humans being wiped out. We deserve it as a race. We're the only animal on this planet that doesn't live according to nature's law. But I am not comfortable with all the other innocent animals that are lived by nature's law being taken out with us. So I'd like to see this happen. But there is a proviso with this, Phil. The proviso is within this rainbow region, which now includes New Zealand, we didn't know about, there have to be a certain number of people who aren't fearful, aren't scared, who aren't worried, which is what this world is all about this year, and they can draw off their energy, and that powers the box and the crystals within. And if there are enough people, and we know the exact number, and the bad news is, right now with all the fear and mongering that's taking place, I'd like to think it was 2, maybe 3 figures, like a couple of hundred to turn the box on. But no, it's not. It's not even in the thousands. It's not even in the tens of thousands. I am told a number that is in 6 figures of souls that must be completely non-fearful, open, loving, giving, and not fearful of anything. I don't know whether there's that many people on this planet, let alone in New Zealand and Australia right now with all the stuff that's going on. But it is fascinating. And I want you to think about this. The 2 countries on this planet that are receiving the less damage from the coronavirus is Australia and New Zealand. Now, people are running around trying to figure out, what are we doing differently than anyone else? And the answer is we're not. But people have got to ask themselves, what is it that's protecting these 2 countries? All the other countries aren't going through this. You take America, they've got 120,000 dead. We got 100. And their population is about 12 times bigger than us. But 100 to 120,000, man, that doesn't come out right. They're increased by a factor of 1,000 on our death rate. Every other planet every other country in this planet, bar Australia and New Zealand, is doing this tough. You've got to understand there's more to everything than what you see. So the story is this: if we do have the right number, the Earth will do something quite bizarre that sounds a bit like quantum physics, where the Earth will have 2 vibrations simultaneously on the same planet, the lower vibration and the higher vibration. Now, why is that happening? Because each soul then makes a decision. If they're drawn to the lower vibration, as many CEOs will, as many generals will, many government officials will, and many other people who talk poorly about other people, engage in gossip, all sorts of groups, and we'll come to that in a sec, will be drawn towards the lower vibration. And others who are more evolved will be drawn towards the higher vibration. Then what the elders tell me, and by the way, this part doesn't change no matter how the other parts do. This part doesn't change. It's always the same. You will see those beings, the ones who've made the bad choice, if you're on the right side, like shadows out of the corner of your eye, and they will see you, but we will never be able to touch and meet. Now, what then happens is that lower vibration cannot stay on this planet. So it slightly fades and fades and fades. And when it does, the souls that chose that way go with it. Now, originally, I asked Brendan at the time, well, what happens to those souls? And he said, they get destroyed. Now, that was the one problem. I remember Evan and I both spoke about this, and we had an issue with that, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
We don't believe you can destroy something like that. It's eternal. Fortunately, I'm now in contact with the people doing the ceremony, and they said, no, we can see how we thought that is wrong. What it means is this, because I did say this, well, okay, let's say a certain group get through. What about the person who was next in line that was one off going in there? Would they get done in because they were marginally worse than some other person who just snuck in through the front door? And I'm thinking, that's not fair. That person was nearly ready. And they said, of course that's right. What will happen is they can incarnate on any planet they want, but not this one. It's gone upwards. It's turned into a university, and they need a kindergarten school. So where they'll incarnate is a planet like Earth, like it is now, just like it is now. Yeah. You can come on this planet, do your business, fight against evil, get better as you go along, and one day you'll be able to incarnate. But what I was told was the vibration is so high on this planet that if these people incarnated again, as they were born, it would kill them. That their body is not ready for that vibration. It would actually overwhelm them and kill them straight away. So they're not punishing anyone. What they're saying is that you people have incarnated here so many times. And each time your job is to try and find out 2 things. And if you don't find them out, you come back. Well, what are we left with now? No insult meant to you, Phil, but we're left with the dunces in the class. We're the ones who never incarnated and went up and kept coming back. Now, why did we come back? Because we failed something. So what this is is this is basically a cleansing of the planet to find out, okay, the pass mark was 99 out of 100. We dropped it to 51. If you can get 51 out of 100, you can come forward. If you get below 51 and you get 49 or 48, you're done for now. So primarily that is the philosophy. And what will take place past that period where the separation takes place, I'm told this planet is unlike virtually any other planet in the cosmos. I'm also told that when this ascension takes place on this planet, it will spread to other planets throughout the cosmos. And that is why the aliens have been here for so long, because they knew this was very much like Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the great experiment. But the answer is not 42. Well, maybe it is 42. I don't know for sure on that, because I don't do sacred geometry. But primarily, that is the philosophy that's coming from the keepers of Uluru. And I can also say this ceremony they're doing on the 21st of December, there'll be two, one for the men and one for the women. We know nothing of the women's ceremony. Is the culmination of 10 years of ceremonies leading up to this one. So the original people are insistent. And I can tell you, if you listen to the Hopi, to the Inuit, the Cherokee and the Mayans, will all tell you the same thing. The change starts again down here. I just assumed it was only Australia, but I'm a bit wrong with that. Now that we know about the Rainbow Ridge, no, it's Australia and New Zealand. The change begins here first and then spreads throughout the planet, because Australia is the oldest place where life began, and it's where the Pleiadians came only to. Now, the Pleiadians left, I shouldn't say this, they knew that we would have civilizations that rise and fall, but they also knew there was a line in the sand or in the rock here where each person had to make a decision. And that's primarily what the end goal of our story is. What we've done in the meantime is we've been collecting information and archaeology and biology and bones and metal and technology that proves A, there were earlier civilizations, B, aliens were involved. But I want people to understand, it's become very clear to me and Evan, do not place any alien above us.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, bro.
Very important to understand it. Just because they have a bloody better piece of technology than us, that doesn't make them better people. My elders have told me, Kano and others have made this very clear, we are the equal of any being in the cosmos, but we don't know that. We're not aware of that anymore. And maybe we should give an example of Kano, shouldn't we?
Yeah, so we're sitting around a campfire, and
Graham Hancock?
Graham Hancock was with us and a few other people. We're at Kangaroo Island, which is down past Adelaide. It's an island off the coast there in South Australia. And, you know, we got there late, so we're doing our thing, getting ready, and then Kano, our elder, just appears, like, in, you know, it's got a bit of paint on, traditional gear.
Lap.
Yep, and starts telling us stories around the fire, and we're like, okay, this is pretty cool.
Then singing.
Yeah, singing.
He sang in old way. He did the whispering song, didn't he?
Yeah, and all of a sudden he took one step away from the fire, then another, and then when he made that second step away from the fire, he instantly disappeared, and about 3 seconds later reappeared about 50 meters, 100 meters.
Standing behind Christine, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Smiling.
Wow.
And then I think somebody, you know.
Somebody asked him a day later, because we've learned something with elders like that. If you ask them a direct question, you get back an answer where it's another question, and you have no idea what the answer is. And we knew that Carter would do that, but someone snuck up, didn't they?
Yeah, they asked him, and I think they also asked his wife too.
Yes.
And I think she said something like, I haven't seen him do that one before.
No, she did. Christine said, I haven't seen him do that one. No.
Other one.
Yeah, but not that one. No.
But the person that did ask him, of course, I think they got some sort of metaphorical riddle as an answer, which is actually a question usually, which was, I did what we can all do.
Why can't you?
Yeah.
Why can't you do what I can do?
Yep.
And that's
I
really
walk on
important.
both worlds or something.
Yeah,
like
I
that.
walk between both worlds. I can see the curtain. Why can't you see it?
Yeah, you can do it.
You can do it. And this is what he said. He's done this stuff a lot. I mean, we could probably spend the next hour talking about things that people will call miracles. And we just, after a while, we just said, oh, that's what Kano does. But he made it clear. It's not what Kano does. It's what we're all capable of doing. We don't know that anymore. So one of the parts of this online conference we've got is our alien ancestry, what comes next. And for us, it's very important we understand that what comes next is we take on the role that we originally had. And I'm going to make a point. People need to understand something. Stop thinking that you're intelligent. We're not. It's very important people understand that. I know that scientists have told you that we are the peak of hominins. If that's the case, explain to me, why did Neanderthals have a bigger brain than us?
Why did Neanderthals have
Hot water service.
a hot water service
50,000 years ago in their village? And tell me, why did Denisovans make jewelry 70,000 years ago that we would admire today? And why is it a Denisovan skull is bigger than a Neanderthal skull? And why is it of those three skulls, ours is the smallest? And I've got a skull right now we found, and we'll talk about that soon enough, that is 400 cc larger than ours. So when we think we are the peak, the top of the tree, we're not. In fact, when it comes to intelligence, the question you should ask is, why didn't the Pleiadians choose the Denisovans, the Neanderthals, even a Homo heidelbergensis, which looks 3 million years old, but it's got a bigger brain than ours? Why didn't they pick one of them? Because they're smarter than us. And why is it we prevailed and they didn't? Because, look, I'll tell you this now. Forget the scientists telling you this. If someone's got a bigger brain than us, how can they be dumber? They told us Lucy's got 600 cc, therefore half as smart as us. How did they work that out? Because we're 1,200. Well, if I've got 1,800, doesn't that make them doubly smarter than us and triply smarter than Lucy? And the answer is yes, it does. So therefore, when you think we're the most intelligent, put that away. We're not. The great majority of us, when our car breaks, what do? We look at it and ring someone and hope they know how to fix it, because we don't know how it goes. We are not intelligent. We are clever. But what we were is we had magic. And that's what the Pleiadians were interested in. That's why they come. I've been told by people I trust that after Pleiadians left here, they went back to their planet and lived like blackfellas. They got rid of everything and they lived just like we did. So you might think, oh, the Pleiadians, oh my God, they come from the Pleiades. They've got fantastic spaceships made of energy that turns into crystals when they get here. Oh, they're so much smarter than us. And they went back to their country. They went back to their planet and they lived like blackfellas. They chucked away their clothes and walked around in the bush and didn't use technology anymore. They were smart. They learned off us how to be even smarter. And what they learned is what they came here for. They wanted to know how to contact the spirits. And that is the thing that blackfellas used to do well. The Hopi used to do well. The Cherokee used to do well. The Mayans, the Incans, all the indigenous people of this planet were all living the same way. And then all of a sudden, technology turned up and we started building houses and we started making money and men took over running the show and the whole thing fell apart. So this story we're doing right now of the change that's coming. And Michael, Phil, it's quite obvious too, when you listen to people talking right now, you hear people using this term, the winds of change, but they don't know what they mean. They just talk about it. Well, those people talking about that, go to the indigenous people of whatever country you live in, be it the Māori people in your case, whether it's the Hopi somewhere else or wherever, even the Druids, go back and ask them for the old way knowledge, because the old way knowledge of magic, of living with nature, of living in tribes where everyone respects each other and all are equal. We don't have any of that anymore. We have democracy and we have all sorts of different wide words, but they don't mean anything anymore. The old way are coming back, and primarily that's what we're actually talking about now. So all the stuff we're going to present when we do our presentation, our job when we do our presentation in these things is we give people, we assuage their rational, conditioned mind. Because most people say, I don't believe in this sort of hippie rubbish because I need evidence. And they say channeling's not evidence. Well, we've got evidence. We've got all the evidence we need, and we've got it from the top scientists in this country, and they're all saying the same thing. It's a matter of which one should we start with first, Evan?
If I could just jump in there,
sorry, mate.
If I could just jump in for a second, you know, something I came across recently, and I don't know, most of the listeners might be aware of a certain author by the name of Greg Braden, and he was maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Anyway, he brought up something interesting on a radio show recently, and that he doesn't really open up too much on the conversations. He travels a lot of the world, works with a lot of the original peoples, and he opened up and said something which I found quite surprising from this particular gentleman, which falls in line with what you're talking about, is that a lot of the channelers who, you know, and there's a lot of channelers out there, and, you know, we have to use our discernment, of course, but he mentioned, and this was very surprising to come from him because I haven't heard this from really anyone, to say that, you know, a lot of the information coming through talks about the people that are coming to visit us, to watch us, you know, that they've got to a point in their societies, in their interstellar societies, where technology, you know, became such the thing that it overtook their lives, and it's that transhumanist thing, that fork in the road that we're at pretty much now, and they want to get back to living from inside out, you know, living and connecting with spirit, because they became so entrenched in this outside sort of, you know what I'm talking about, right? So yeah, it's so fascinating to hear that, guys.
It's exactly what they're coming here for. Yeah, they've got technology past ours, and we'll never catch up. What people don't understand is we're not meant to. We keep thinking if we have a bigger TV or a faster car or something that can fly us to the moon, that'll make us better people. No, it won't. You've got to understand that we've had earlier civilizations, and they've always collapsed when technology has taken over and gone ahead of spirituality. This planet works on a spiritual octane fuel. It doesn't need much technology. And what we've learned, it happened with Atlantis, it's happened before then, it's going to happen again now, is that we have a skill. And our skill, look, let me give you another example. If we're going to talk about what the future is, we're going to use Kano again. I know Evan's got to come and go here. Right. Let me give you another example of what Kano's on about to explain what you would prefer. I would say to you, would you like to have a Porsche, a flash Porsche, or what Kano can do? And I'll let each listener listen. And again, this is another true story, okay? This is the way things will be in the future. Okay, I go on to country with Evan, who's not here at the moment. He'll come back. And we're on country out near Carrion Way in Gosford. And normally Arnie Bev, before she passed on, would always give a ceremony before we went on, because we do it our way. Arnie Bev was crook. She died soon after, and she already had a clot in her leg, and she couldn't come. So I did a different ceremony that Uncle Jerry gave me, because I will not go on to country without doing ceremony, because the spirits are there. And we did a good ceremony. Evan did it. I got him to do it. And the other three people, we all did it. One by one, we went and gave ceremony to the cave wall going in. And Evan went in first. And as he went in, a brown owl flew out, and Evan picked up a feather. Now, you would think, Phil, that's a good sign, wouldn't you? And
I'd be open to interpreting it for sure.
Sounds good. We spent the day filming orbs coming out of this cave, and one orb went up the side of this guy's back, around his head, and went like that. And I'm thinking, that's a conscious movement here. We've captured something really good. Evan's got a brown owl feather. We've filmed some amazing orb movements where they're moving around us and over us.
Yeah, it's all sounding pretty good, isn't it?
It was sounding great. So we went back where we stayed, and we stayed at this guy's place. I think it was Ryan's at the time. About 7:30, 3 hours after we left, Evan gets a phone call, and he hands the phone to me and he says, "What did you say, Evan?" "It's who?"
"It's Kano."
"It's Kano." That's bad news. You've got to understand that. Well, normally someone rings and Kano wants to speak to you. Someone else rings you to tell you you have to ring Kano. And you ring your elder. Your elder doesn't chase you up. He's above you. You come to him. When he comes to you, that means you're in deep shit. Now, he's only rung me twice. This is the second time. The first time I was in deep shit.
Yeah.
This time I was in bigger deep shit. Oh, we shouldn't say that. Oh, sorry.
No. Go for it, lads. Where your heart's at.
What he said to me, he said, "You're on country today, weren't you?" Evan's standing there looking at me thinking, what's happened here?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, but 3,000 k's away, Kano. I don't need permission to go on this country. I had it with Arnie Bibb. He said, I know that. He said, but why didn't you smoke yourself? I'm thinking, hang on for a sec. No, we didn't smoke ourselves. I said, but I did another ceremony. He said, you mean the one where you stack the rocks on one another? I said, yeah, that's what Uncle Jerry told me. And all the time I'm thinking, hang on for a sec, you weren't there for that. You weren't there for that. But we continue our conversation. But I'm thinking all the way along here, why are you telling me this? And then he said to me, he said, the 4 people who went there, they all went and built on top of that stone stack. I said, yeah, because that's what Uncle Jerry said. He said, yeah, and Uncle Jerry was talking about another area, wasn't he? I said, yeah. He said, no, smoking. You didn't smoke. He said, this is what's going to happen. He said, you're both going to be punished. And Evan, you were sick for about, what, 3 years? Yeah.
That was fun.
That was fun. Because he picked the old feather up. He made the mistake.
I was first in the cave.
First in. They saw him first. And he said, you're both going to be punished for this. He said, Evan's going to be sick. And he told me, he said, if you ever go onto country again and you don't smoke yourself, you'll be dead. The spirits will kill you. And I took all this in, and finally I had to ask a question. The answer was, Kano, 3,000 k's away. We did this 3 hours ago. That's 1,000 kilometers per hour. This news has got you. I said, hey, who told you? I said, no one rang you. He said, of course they didn't. He said, I've got a red kangaroo standing right next to me on the veranda right now, and he's telling me everything you did.
So the owl flew out.
The owl flew out, told someone else, but remember this, ladies and gentlemen, that news traveled at over 1,000 kilometers per hour. It took 3 hours for him to ring me up and tell me, you were on country, you didn't smoke yourself, you put up the stats there, Evan went in first, picked up there, he's going to get into trouble, you'll be killed if you do this again. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we may not have the biggest cranium on this planet, and we don't. We never did, okay? I've got 4 skulls right now that are all larger than ours, so forget that. So that's not what our skill is. And if you want to think we're intelligent, have a look around today and look at what we've done to the place and show me the intelligent actions there, and I can't see many. It's not there. We might be clever, but we're never intelligent. What we are is magic. And what Kano was doing is, you know, Dr. Dolittle can talk to animals. Well, that might sound like fiction to some people, wouldn't it? No, it's not. Because the owl spoke to another animal, that spoke to another animal, and spoke to a red kangaroo that hopped onto Kano's veranda while he was sitting there, and then sat there and then gave that information to him. That is what every human can do. Now, if you had the choice between talking to animals, telepathically communicating with animals, disappearing in front of people, which he calls a party trick. I was quite offended when I heard that later, but I realized later it doesn't really do anything. It's just a great party trick. I'm there and I'm not. Where am I? I don't know. It'd be something like David Copperfield would do on a magic show, except this is magic. So, ladies and gentlemen, what do we learn from that? We've learned that we do have a role to play, but not on this planet. We have a galactic role to play, and that is why aliens from all over the universe and galaxies have come here. I always thought the question about aliens was never, were they here? I think that's wasting your time, and people are still dealing with that. The question should be, why? Why sacrifice your home planet to this squabbling, warring planet where men are fighting men on a daily basis? Now, a whole history, and I'm a history teacher in high school, and I can tell you, our history is wars interspersed by people who have realized that it's wrong, who are oppressed, and normally, like Galileo and others, put their books out after they're dead because they know they'll be killed if they put it out during that time. I remember once another elder, and I should share this one with you, Uncle Marbach, or nearly of the level of Kano, another old one. And I remember one day we spent hours and he was reading all the rocks for us and blowing me away, telling me stuff about the rocks that I never knew. He could just read them back to front for hours on end. I never wrote a thing down. And at the end of it, he was talking about the Pleiadians. And I said to him, Uncle Marbach, I said, Uncle Marbach, I know they're here. I said, but I don't get why.
Yeah.
I can't see what they're going to learn from us. I said, look at the last 6,000 years on this planet. What have we done? We just beat each other up and kill each other. I don't think there's a person alive today that's incarnated that hasn't been in a war and killed other people in a war, because that's what we do. That's what we've done all the time. I said, what can they learn from us? And he said, you can't see it, can you? I said, no, that's why I'm asking. I can't see any reason, any invitation, any need for these highly advanced beings to spend their time with a group of children squabbling in the sandpit continually, century after century. And he said to me, he said, I want you to go back to TV. And I want you to go back to the very first time an alien was presented in a benevolent, caring way. And he said, who would that be? And I went back to, I went to Star Wars, not really. I did, I went to my favorite Martian, but that's ridiculous because that's not really it. And anyway, I couldn't get it. And he said, I want you to think, and this person's name is Gene Roddenberry. I thought, oh God, now I know it. It's Star Trek, it's Spock, isn't it? He said, think about Spock as a typical Pleiadian. Cares about humans, rationally understands what's right and wrong, but doesn't get humans. He can't understand why they're so emotionally driven. But he stands by them. And he said, the one thing that the Pleiadians came for is because we control the most powerful force in the cosmos, and we are the only ones that can fully control it. I said, I'm starting to get it, but I said, what do you think that is? He said, it's love. He said, Dr. Spock, if a human laid down their life for another human, he would say, that's not rational, is it?
It's illogical.
It's illogical. Jim, that's illogical. That doesn't make sense. Why lay your life down for someone else? If they're going to die, let them die. And he said, no, only humans would lay down their life for another human. He said, that's pure love. And he said, that is the most powerful force there is in the cosmos. And humans are the ones, when they use it with magic, that use it in a greater way than anyone else. And the reason for the last 6,000 years we've been the way we have is because those who control us are suppressing that part of humanity. The magic that we speak about, that was in all the courts, whether it was Merlin or Nostradamus, remember, they still kept them there then. They never dismissed magic then. It's only recently we've done that. He said, that is what makes us special. And that's why the Pleiadians came here way back, to understand further the power of love that overcomes any other negative force. He said, that's what this planet resonates on. The planet itself reverberates on that. And that is why even reptilians and draconians have been on this planet long enough. Some of them have changed. People would say, oh, no, all the reptilians are wrong. They're all bad. No, they're not. They can't be, because the longer they stay on this planet, they can't help to be affected by the energy that's coming within it. Now, at the moment, that energy has been dulled down by the filth and in the air and all the stuff going through the air with all the different satellites giving off energy and all that stuff that's going on is messing up this planet, and it will be cleansed. But remember, according to Dr. Spock, no matter what the humans did, he stood by them, didn't he? He fought with them every time, and he kept shaking his head because he could never understand why we were so irrational, which we are, and so driven by emotions, which we are, but he understood that one of those emotions is above all others. So that is what they've come here to learn from us, because they know we were the great magicians. And if you go through our past history and you look very carefully at it, that's what you'll hear about. You'll find out that way back before we had buildings, we sat around the campfire, whether it's the Māori people, whether it's the original people, and guess who was the boss? The magician, the shaman, the clever fella, the wind, because they were in contact with the spirits. They could do what Kano did. Same thing. There was a time when every tribe was run by people like Kano. Now today, I don't believe there's a leader on this planet that comes even close to Kano. And I would prefer to have a council of elders of Kanos and men and women like him leading me than any other group. And you can't change that because the system makes it so that every leader has to fit into that system. Now, you can get variations. You can get things that go to the far right and become really oppressive. And I've got to be honest, one of the best variations on this planet, we believe, we don't know fully what's going on in New Zealand, is there's a bit of a love affair in Australia with Jacinda Ardern, isn't there? We want to swap him. We want to give you Scott Morrison and we'll have Jacinda Ardern, and we're quite happy with that. But she still can't. She still has to play within the system. They all do. The elders that we talk to, they don't play within that system. They live old way system. An old way system reveres the planet. It reveres the elders. And everything in old way system must benefit the earth or it can't be done. Today, we don't have that anymore. The earth comes second or third or fourth.
Like digging big holes in the earth here in Australia. We've actually just recently lost sites because of that. So while we're all down in lockdown, they've blown up a site.
Jugan Gorge.
Yeah.
It's the oldest inland site in Australia, 46,000 years old, and they blew it up completely. And we do know they're destroying other sites in Australia right now. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, they're doing that deliberately. They're trying to destroy the sacred sites here so the ley lines will be broken. That is the reason they're doing that. Seriously, it is a matter of that. Rio Tinto were told weeks in advance not to do this. Everyone knew they were going to do it. A geologist put out 3 weeks in advance they were going to do this. The tribe found out and said, don't do it. They said, no, we've laid the dynamite down. We can't move it. And they blew it up deliberately. They are destroying these ley line sites because they know they're important. If they really had their chance, I don't know if people know this, at one stage, did you know they were going to blow up Uluru?
Wow.
Oh, yeah. That was planned. That was planned. That was going to be the railway line. They were going to use those rocks for the fill there. They were going to blow up Uluru. In this country, there's nothing more.
They were going to use the hieroglyph site near Sydney. Was that
artillery practice? Yeah, they're going to blow up another artillery practice. We know about that one. All around this country for quite some time, they've known that the original people here were magicians. So what they've done is they've made sure they've taken their magic away, but they can't take it away from all black fellas or white fellas when it comes to that. And that is what's coming back. So we know that's taking place. And for those people who feel this story about aliens, I'm pretty sure most of your mob who are listening to you probably aren't that, do believe they exist. But there are a lot that don't.
Yeah, there's a fight in my Facebook group right now about it.
Yeah, attacking us on our Facebook saying aliens don't exist.
How could they not exist?
Well, I don't know why they could put it on our website because they know we've got an alien skull. All right, they know that.
Maybe you should.
I will.
Yeah.
I can also.
The information is so overwhelming. I mean, we've even. Hey, I just want to throw this in too, and I mentioned this before. Those 3 videos that were shared around over the last 3 so years that showed the strange object that the US Army fighter jets were going, what the hell are those? Over the period of the lockdown, the government came forward, the US government, the Pentagon came and said, those are legitimate videos. You know, why with the timing? Because everything's timed by these people, you know, they produce and share information. They're getting the public ready for something. And they really are.
Yeah, but here's the point. You've got to be careful with this. What they have to do is I've got to make this point again and again. If the whole world is fearful of losing their job, fearful of other people coming into their house and spreading germs with them and stuff like that. Can we stop that Dropbox? Fearful of all that stuff. If they're fearful, then nothing changes. And that's what they've got to do. They've got to try and make sure that that noise doesn't continue.
Yeah, no, I've just got to quickly go to the other browser.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that those videos are necessarily showing, you know, visitors from other places. They could very well be our own technology, and it's a very managed form of disclosure.
I've been told they're going to do a false alien attack towards the end of the year so that we're going to be fearful of aliens. I've been told they're setting us up for that. Now, I don't know if that's right or wrong, or maybe there's a good group within mainstream that are trying to get the truth out. I don't know which is true, but I can tell you now, if you even go and watch children's shows right now, you're going to find aliens as characters in most of the children's shows on TV at the moment. They're popping up everywhere, preparing us for that, but I'm not so sure they're preparing us for it in a benevolent way. Remember, it's very clear to me, this is the most important part of this prophecy, that if there is not enough people that are enlightened and have got that energy to put into these crystals, they will leave. nothing will happen. And then the earth will right itself anyway. So I believe I would not do anything. The fact that, yes, you're right about this. They've been putting out stuff about UFOs recently on the slide, and they've put it out a lot. They've admitted they're there. But what they haven't told us, and the most important point in this is the same thing again. I'll repeat it time after time. It's not important why they're here, that they're here. It's important why they came. That's really the important part of this. Nothing else counts. We've got to understand what our role is. And to that end, what I'd like to show you now, can you hold this up for me, Evan? I never get it right. Oh, maybe I can. Here it is here.
Oh, there we go.
There I'm holding for you now a skull. It's been put together. That's the face there. And if you have a look at the forehead, you won't, because there isn't one. Now, this was put together, before you think, how did we do this? This was put together by a gentleman that worked for the Australian Museum, and he put together skulls. This is his job. Now, that first part you're looking at now is 8 pieces we've got, and can you see how it slopes backwards? Now, I'm going to show you, that's the first form. And then what we had it made in 2 parts. The first part was done by the guy from the museum. Then it was sent to the gentleman who does the face models for
Alien and Predator.
Right, in Hollywood. And what he did was he put the rest of the thing together. And this is what he came up with. And I'll show you now his creation. We'll see if we get this right. There it is. That is what it comes out like. Now, number one,
Wow.
I'm going to hold that for a few seconds and show you. Now I'm going to show you a normal sapien skull. Look at the shape of the nose there. Look at the forehead at the top. Look at the size of the eyes. See how those eyes are rather square looking and it's got a round nose? Look at this one. You've got basically round eyes and a triangular nose, and the nose is much higher. And again, there's no forehead. This is actually over forehead. Now look at the back of it. Look at the back of this skull. The widest part is at the back. Here's a sapien skull. Widest part is in the middle. Secondly, this is 1700 cc. The other one, that little tiny little shrink you saw before, that was 1300 cc, and that's us. The 1700 cc is not us. Now, I want people to think for 1 second, and I want you guys to think about this. I want you to think about the zebras. What do they look like? They all look like zebras, don't they? Yeah, they all look like zebras, don't they? If I was to tell you what does a fox's face look like, you could draw one for me, couldn't you? They'd all be the same. In fact, you could go to any animal on this planet, bar one, and you could draw one and say that's what they look like. Then you do humans. You've got 7 billion of them, and no 2 look the same. We've got 2 eyes, 1 nose, a face, and 2 ears. How can we make 7 billion different arrangements of that? Why is it that all zebras look the same? Why do all elephants look the same? Why is it humans can weigh 30 kilos, they can weigh 300 kilos? We can be half a meter, we can be 2.5 meters high. We can have red hair, we can have black hair, we can have all different colors hair. In fact, every one of our fingerprints is different, every one of our iris is different, but we're all supposed to come from the same mother and father. If that's the case, how come all chimps look the same? How come our gorillas look the same? How is it we look different from every other animal on the planet? Well, the answer is obvious. I just showed you the answer. I showed you 2 skulls. One was alien and one was terrestrial, and they look nothing like each other. But if you put the 2 sets of genes together, you know what you get? You get a huge variation. If we have different genes that aren't from this planet but from elsewhere, that will explain why we've got 7 billion people who don't look the same. And that will explain why every other thing on this planet has a general facial features that don't vary. All chimps look the same. Now, the chimps, here's another one. We have hair on our head, and it grows, doesn't it? What other animal does that? What monkey does that? None. We've got another problem. I'll hold this up now. See this one here? This one I showed you before. There's no suture at the back. Do you realize what that means? It's not a hominid. And by the way, both the people making the skull contacted us more than once and told us the same thing. We don't know what to do with this thing because it doesn't have 3 sutures. Sutures. Lucy has sutures. We have sutures. And when a baby is born, they're not joined up, which means our brain can expand. all monkeys, all primates, all gorillas don't have sutures. They have a sagittal keel, which then means their brain will never expand. It can't. Ours can. But hang on for a sec. This thing doesn't have any sutures. And I want to make a point. Let me hold this up again. Not so much for the men. I want you to look at the shape of that for a sec, ladies and gentlemen, and particularly the ladies. I want you to think about the fact you're giving birth to this thing. Now remember, the skull at the front is 2 centimeters wider now to begin with, but this is 17. This is 17 centimeters across the back. We're 13. Who wants to give natural birth to this being? I wouldn't. I would be saying straight away when I saw it in there, I'd say, right, I'd like to have a cesarean, please. I'm not giving birth to this, because you couldn't. You wouldn't get the baby's head out. It just gets wider and wider at the back, and there's no giving it. It can't crush in like ours does. It has to stay locked in like that. So the birth process of this is ridiculous. But secondly, when you look at this being I just held up here, and I'll hold up this one here, like that, what's the neck look like? It's not like ours, guys, because it slopes backwards. 90% of your brain is above your eyes. 95% of the brain of this one is below their eyes. Now, the weird part about this being is not even the face. The face looks pretty different. I'll tell you now, if anyone was walking down the street and they were walking on the opposite side of the street, they'd be on their own. Everyone say they're not people, but here's the weird part. The part that convinced me they have to be aliens is not even the face. Not even the fact the eyes are so damn big that they'd have to wear sunglasses during the day. It's too big for daytime running. It's the humerus bone. I was at a site which is now being closed down by the Australian government for very good reasons, where I picked up the humerus bone of this being. I picked up the femur bone, which was laying on the ground. It was 42 centimeters. So's mine. So I made the assumption it was 5'10", because I'm 5'10". Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I like that. I thought that's good archaeology. Then I picked up the humerus bone, and it went past my elbow, down towards my wrist. In fact, it was further towards my wrist than my elbow, but I didn't have the elbow joint. It measured 43 centimeters, and yours and mine is between 30 to 32. A gibbon is 35. That's as long as it gets for a humerus bone. This was at least 45. Could be 50. I don't know. Here's the point, but if you add the elbow to the wrist bone onto that, then put your hand on there, you have an arm that's well over a meter long. It means it's dragging on the ground. But here's the weird part. I measured the width of this bone. It wasn't 1 inch wide at its widest point. So what does it do? What would a bone do that was that thin and that long do? And why would nature make a being like this? It doesn't make sense, because the gravity is too strong. You wouldn't have enough ligaments and muscles to make it a functional thing. Hang on. If the gravity was less, then that arm would have more ligaments and muscles. And if the gravity was less, then I'd need bigger eyes. If I had less sunlight, I'd need bigger eyes. So if I could find a place where there was less sunlight and less gravity, then that being would work. But that's not this Earth. That's the problem. And by the way, we found 4 of these, and they are in 4 different tribal locations spread over 2,000 kilometers. 1 is found on the coast, 1 is on the desert, and 2 are on the river. So don't tell me it's a mutation, because that's what we're told to begin with. Don't say this is just some weird mutation. It can't be. And by the way, when we went to the first burial site, the front 2 teeth were taken out of this being, which is the same initiation that took place when Cook got to the same location. So they were doing this same ceremony for this being that was buried there next to another person at a burial site facing east, with their arms and their knees up against their chest. No, this wasn't a mutation. This was someone of importance that was buried overlooking the Murray River. And we know the Murray River moved from there 60,000 years ago. Oh, that means it's over 45,000 years. That could be blown up. Oh dear. We might have to blow this site up. It's over 45,000 years old. So that's what we do in Australia. When it gets old, we blow it up. So that's probably why the Australian government have closed that site down. And if you go to that site, you'll be arrested. No one's allowed to look at it. And there's a complete skeleton of that being I'm talking about. Every bone from the toe to the head is there, and it's buried there right now. And everyone knows where it is. The Australian government knows where it is. The Australian government knows that we have these bones. They were taken from another site in 1953 by an academic from a university. And he went to the university and contacted the government. And the government told them, and I'm showing you these bones. I've just showed them to you right now. These ones I held up here, sloping back like that. You know, the government said, nothing to see here. No, nothing at all. Normal human being. That's Homo sapien. No, we're not going to look at it. We're not going to examine it. In fact, they didn't even come and look at the bones. They looked at his photos, didn't they?
Yep.
And I got into trouble because I said the government was so slack. They didn't even do a proper analysis, and the analysis was faulty. I was told by them. I got into trouble for that. And they proudly said, we did no analysis. We didn't even look at it. So you're wrong for saying that. I think, I'm wrong for thinking they would have analysed it. And they're boasting they didn't even come and look at it or assess it. And they're proving to me that we're wrong for thinking that they might have been.
They might have done half
an analysis. But they proudly said, we didn't even go and look at it. We just looked at the photos and said there's nothing to see there. So obviously we've made a mistake here. We're in the wrong. And it's interesting, to this day, we have those bones in our house. 50,000, 100,000 years old these bones are, of a being that no one's ever seen before. They're sitting in our house. I've lined up a university ready to examine it right now and do mitochondrial DNA testing, OSL, tooth analysis, the whole thing. They're ready to go. We can't do it. The government won't let me. If I'm to take those bones, and I could show you one of them right now, couldn't I? I can hold up to you a bone that was taken out of that burial site, and I will. If I take it out the front door, I go to jail for 3 years and get fined $1 million. How do I know, Evan?
They sent lovely letters to you.
How many letters have I got? About 5.
Oh, the last one you got.
Oh, yeah.
Before Christmas.
Yeah, I got one before Christmas from the government.
From the government.
After about 4 or 5 letters, big written responses telling me they're going to put me in jail, I got a letter from them in December, an official warning. And what this is about the skull site and the standing stone site, all these sites together. And they said, at this stage, they've decided they will not take me to court and put me in jail. But at some time in the future, undisclosed what it would be, they might still put me in jail and they might take me to court. But for now, I've been told that I am not going to be taken to court, but I can be. So I've done well. I've actually gone up one step. But if I was to take that bone and take it to the university, which is 20 minutes from now, I'd be in jail.
You can't get them to come to you?
No, wouldn't matter, because I'm not allowed to get it tested either. But they've let me keep the bones. In fact, I'm going to show you one of them now. I'll go and get it. Have an entertain the man while I'm gone.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the ridiculous aspect of it. Like, all we want to do is science and then, take it back to country. But no, we can't do that.
Now, I'm being scientific here. You'll notice I'm holding this on a cloth. But there it is. Can you see the forehead I was telling you about?
Right.
There isn't one, is there?
No.
Now, if I hold this up a bit, I'll hold it like this for a sec. I don't know if you can see it. I can now. I'll turn it around. Can you see the peak that's on the top? You know where our depression is between our eyes?
Right.
See what's happened there? It's the opposite. We have a depression there, don't we? It has something that sticks out. And then you can also see, I hold this all the way down there. There's no suturing. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was found inside that burial site. I'd love to do science on it.
Yeah, and funny enough, with each one of these sites, there's always another completely different hominid / being next to it. There's always 2 buried next to each other.
Yes.
One we think may have even been Neanderthal because of that. What's that back of the head thing called?
There's a square knob on the back of the first one we went to. There was another being there. And like this one I showed you has a skull thickness of 6. The other one next to it has a skull thickness of 14. Well, I just want to talk about the fact we're a mixture of a lot of different things. Now, with that one, there's a square knob at the back of 1.5 centimeters. And I didn't know until I went and saw this guy that gave us this one. When he gave us this, we spoke about that and he got out a book and showed me. And it showed me there, Neanderthal, that the only beings that have a square knob on the back of their skull. Well, that Neanderthal skull is buried next to the other one. It shouldn't be in Australia. And then what gets weird is in the 1953 one, the one I've showed you where we've got the 9 pieces there, we're given another skull, which is even thicker. It's 15 centimeters at the back, 15 mils at the back. And lo and behold, we thought it was a Denisovan, didn't we? But the 2 experts said, no, you've got an archaic Homo sapien here. Now that's really interesting because archaic Homo sapiens have only ever been found in Africa. But here's the point. They're now found in Australia. Neanderthal was supposed to come out of Africa. Well, that's a lie because Africans don't have Neanderthal DNA at all. Africans don't have Denisovan DNA. And they're supposed to be the oldest race, aren't they?
And when you look at Denisovans, one of their nearest matches is the Australian Aboriginal people.
Yeah, and that's another one. If you want to talk about Denisovans, they're found in Asia and through Europe. And we have Denisovans in Europe, I think, 700,000 years ago. But strangely enough, they never came to Australia, so we're told. But the original people have the closest DNA match to Denisovans. Original people can be 3 to 6% Denisovan. I'm 4.7, which means I'm basically 1/20th Denisovan to this day. So the original people are the only people on the planet that go above 3%. And in my case, I'm 4.7. That's massively high. That's the high, as nearly as high as you can go. Yet the original people were supposedly came from Africa, went to Australia 50,000, 60,000 years ago and never went out again.
And unfortunately, you have to ignore all the sites that don't fit into that timeline. Which there are many. Like this, it's like Swiss cheese. We've got a site down the bottom past Melbourne. That's what, 120,000?
Yeah, there's a human occupation site they've now found in Australia. It's 120,000 years old. Jim Bowler is considered the grandfather of Australian archaeology. He's been on that site for 8 years, and he said there's older dates coming up. Now, we were told Africans came to Australia 50,000 years ago. Now, here we are in the bottom of Victoria with dates of 120,000 years, so it's wrong. The whole of that story is wrong. They've got it way wrong. What they don't understand is the whole of this planet has lived to a different heartbeat and a different way of living than we even begin to understand. This is the 4th time we've risen. And what we've never learned is between each time we go back and become hunter-gatherers and we live with the land. And we do that for a long, long, long period. Then what happens is technology takes over and we do what we're doing now. We do it and then it gets wiped out and we go back again. So 95% of the time humans have been here, we've been living as hunter-gatherers and farmers, but no-till farmers. And 5% of the time, we're living like we live now. And what we've got to learn is this way doesn't work. This is what this is all about. So to an extent, the reason why all the stuff we found is turned up now is because, well, to an extent, I sort of know the story with this particular being here. I know a fair bit about where it came from. And yeah, it did come from another place and it was called here to clean this place up a long, long time ago. Now, this is where it gets a bit weird, but this is what we've been told by people of trust, is I came here 1 million years ago and the place was being trashed then, but not by us, but by the reptilians. And the story I was told was it was called by the trees. The trees put out a plea and they told these beings to come and cleanse this planet. And this is what they started 1 million years ago. It's been a long-term process. And they said the trees were being cut down. The earth was being polluted. That the beings here were killing each other. Warfare was taking place everywhere.
Sounds
a little bit familiar, doesn't it? They said these horrible reptilians. Man, they're horrible. We're not. We're good. This is what I love about the way people talk about reptilians. Oh, they're hopeless and we're all good. No, that's not what I heard. I heard it was really bad 1 million years ago and they came to clean the place up, but they couldn't. The reptilians blew up their spaceship and a couple fell to the earth and that was one of them. But they didn't pull it off then, but they're trying to do it again. But the problem is this time they're dealing with another species that's just as vicious, it's just as uncaring, it's just as brutal. And they're not reptilians this time. They're sapiens. And a lot of people run down the reptilians and say how horrible they are. I'm thinking, no, they're no different to the other mob that's taken over the place now. We're no better. I know there are reptilians that are wearing Homo sapien bodies, but There's Homo sapiens that are part of this too. Don't worry, they're into it up to their neck. So there's no difference there. You've got to stop picking on any race, either one from this planet or any other planet, and make out they're worse or better. They're not. We're all the same. So yeah, all this stuff we're picking up at the moment is all turned up for the same reason. It's this change that's taking place. So whatever we've got is part of that. And of course, we also have metal objects that deny there weren't earlier civilizations and deny that there weren't aliens involved in what we were doing. And I can think of two that come to mind.
Yes.
What should we do first, Evan? Let's do the... Let's get it out.
You want to get the little object out.
Yeah, let's do this one. As I said, our job in this is to convince people, convince their rational mind they've been lied to. This one here, I'll hold it up. It's on one side, it looks pretty flat like it is there. See how flat it is? On the other side, it's got a creation, something's been made. And the top of it, if I turn it, whoops, just dropped it on the bone. If I turn it around like, where is it? Up there. You might see on the top, there's a round piece there. That was a complete clasp that actually joined up and it was broken. Now, Auntie Minnie Mace gave us this. She found this at the Carry-On Glyphs and she gave it to us for protection, didn't she?
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't understand why we'd need that, but we do now.
Yeah.
Now, what happened was, ladies and gentlemen, for quite some time I had this, and if I hold it up again, you're going to see if I hold it up this time. See that mark on the edge there, mate? Can you see that?
Yep.
It was cut away by a laboratory, the best laboratory in this country. And it was at a university. The guy that runs it's a friend of mine. And he saw this object and he said, I want to test it. I said, how would you test it? I cut it. I said, oh, not mine. It's Auntie Minnie Mace's. Like, you can't cut that without her permission. I'll ask. I said, why do you want to do that? Because he said, I think there's something wrong with this metal. It doesn't look right. Now, I'm not a metallurgist, and this guy runs a laboratory in a university, and they pay the university around about $3 million rent per year, and they've got 38 scientists there, and he goes around the world. One of the very few scientific organizations in this country that makes money, if not the only one. And this guy's known around the world. He said, I want to analyze that. So finally, I got permission. So we knew it looked aluminium, and it's 73% aluminium and 3% copper. Now, it's interesting. When they put the drill out, it bounced off. And I remember Graham looking at the guy saying, what are you doing? And Mark, who I played tennis with the guy that had the drill. He said, I put an aluminium drill. I can't get through. So they had to put a tungsten tip to cut it. Now, that was odd because it was 73% aluminium, 3% copper. But here's the trick. They did an analysis. They did a second analysis, and they came back and told me, we've got a problem here. I said, what's the problem? He said, the 24%. Can't be identified. So 24%, 1/4 of what I've shown you, is not on the periodic table and it's not on this planet. They've made it clear. We've compared it to everything on the periodic table. It doesn't register. So 1/4 of this object, which by the way, was found next to a bone, which we've had analysed as ancient, and we think it's the bone of the son of the pharaoh Nefertari. We think that this may have been given to him to wear. But here's the trick. If he's Egyptian, there's no bauxite in Egypt. Now, somebody might say to me, oh, this has been made recently, couldn't they, Evan?
Yeah. Someone said, oh, you know what someone said once? Oh, it's a melted Coke can.
Oh, that's right. Someone said this was a melted Coke can. That's right. I remember hearing that. It's been made recently. Now,
there's 24% exotic materials in it.
They're wrong for another reason. Let me tell you the other reason why they're wrong. They're wrong for this reason because we did some research on metallurgy. Number one, to put copper and aluminium together is not an easy trick because they're reactive. They will react to one another. You've got to have a very specific, detailed process for that to happen. And remember, this is found in Australia, where we never had metal, we never had a wheel, we never had anything, we just had fire. But the problem is this, aluminium, you may not know this, but in the 1800s, it was more precious than gold. Did you know that? Napoleon III, when he served people in the palace, the hoi polloi got silver and the rich ones got aluminium. And the aluminium was around 12%. It was 12% copper with the aluminium, right? That's what they did, 12%. Now, you can go and check this in the history books and you'll find they did make copper and aluminium together 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. And during that time, the percentage of copper was between 2 to 4%. This is 3%. So we have a signature here. The technology in which those two objects were put together didn't happen now, because we don't make a low amount of copper like 3% now. It's 10 to 12%. You have to go back 3,000 to 4,000 years to get to 3%. So we know it was made a long, long time ago. But the problem is, yeah, okay, I can get down to 3,000 years, but where do I get the other quarter from? And I can tell you now, it's not identifiable. If that laboratory can't identify it, and they made it clear, this guy goes around the world doing talks everywhere. He's considered a world expert. And they've been back to see me, because we still play tennis. I played tennis with Mark 2 weeks ago. First thing he said to me was, what's happening with that object? Because it's not right.
They're kind of in disbelief that like,
no one's
the mainstream media
will not pick it up.
Yeah.
Because we play. The problem is, mate, we play by their rules. We want to go to the world expert on tooth analysis that worked with Chris Stringer, didn't he? Who is considered the top archaeologist in the world. He's one of his proteges in Australia, and he's the world expert on tooth analysis. He looked at that skull I showed you and said, that's not a Homo sapien. I said to him, but only Homo sapiens came to Australia. That's the rule. He said, yeah, I know that. He said, I wrote a paper on that, but I'm wrong. That's wrong. That's not a Homo sapien. He said that straight away. But I can't say his name because that got out once, didn't it?
Yep.
And then the Australian press attacked him and said, what's this about? You found something that's not a Homo sapien. And he was bailed up by the Australian press. They bailed him up about this. He said, I don't want to talk about it, because he couldn't. So here's the trick. What is 1/4 of this? We don't know. Doesn't make sense. So let's do a second piece. Yep. Let me hold you up this one. Yep. This ring. I'll hold it up with my finger in it. Can you see the finger in my ring? That ring there?
Keep your hand straight.
I've got one.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Right. You probably figure out I could probably fit 3 fingers in there, and it might just fit. Okay. There. It was found at the temple grounds of Angkor Wat. We have 3 that are found there. Now, what I can tell you about these rings is people haven't analysed them, but we have. We've got another person who analyses them. The machine costs about $80,000. And they do it for free for us because they know we're onto something. And we've had 3 of these rings analysed like this. And let me tell you about 2 of them. Well, all 3 of them are different. One of them, we know the makeup. One of them has titanium in there. Now, Angkor Wat was found in 1820, right? Titanium was discovered first in 1796 by a Frenchman whose name I've forgotten. Titanium was first manufactured and used industrially in 1930 in jewelry. And you may not know this, but 24 karat gold has less than 1% titanium, because titanium is the hardest metal there is. It is the highest strength ratio and corrosion ratio of any metal on the planet. So my question is this. That ring I showed you, and I'll hold it up again, is ancient.
Yep.
Bits of dark on it, and the lights come up on it, and it's really old. And the ring itself, I don't know if you can see this, you can see that part of it's broken. You can see mark where it's come away there on that side I'm holding up. Titanium was first put inside metal objects in 1930. This is found in Angkor Wat. This ring is thousands of years old, but the titanium they put in 24 karat gold is less than 1%. The titanium in this is above 1%. It's 1.115%. So this was put inside the ring using technology that we found in 1930, but it was used in Angkor Wat thousands of years before. Now, my question is, what's going on there? Then we got another ring. We only had it analysed 4 days ago. And lo and behold, same makeup as this one, but no titanium. They put in chromium. When was chromium discovered? 1797, the year after titanium was discovered, right? What is chromium used for? It's used for paint. But did you know it had the second highest strength to density ratio and the second highest corrosion ratio? It's only one metal's in front of it, titanium. So how did the people in Angkor Wat know about chromium and titanium, the capacity it had to keep these things strong forever, how did they know about that thousands of years ago? And we only found out last century. We started putting stuff in there. I can tell you, but I looked this up in some detail, and there's a clue here. They said some chromium was found on some spear points in ancient China. They said, oh, it was probably paint, but right, it was probably paint. You know, they put a bit of paint on there. It's got on there. You've got to understand something. Chromium is actually chromite. You can't get chromium until you do electric arc welding with it and then use that as a furnace, electric arc furnace, to break it into chromium. So when they said that, if they grab the chronite from the ground, sure, you get your red from that. But to get chromium, it's got to go through a process. And they found chromium on these ancient spear points in China. But they knew that couldn't be right because chromium was only discovered in 1797. So say Wikipedia. So therefore, they dismissed it. But here's the point. I can tell you now, the ring that we had analysed that has chromium, that has no paint, no paint. There is a bit of dirt, and someone said, oh, it's probably in the dirt. No, no, in the dirt, it would be chromite. It can't be chromium yet. If it's in the dirt and it's been registered on our machine, which it would come up as chromite, because chromium is what comes out after it's been worked with and after it's been heated. So therefore, it can't be. So what we have is we have two rings here. One has titanium, shouldn't be there. One has chromium, shouldn't be there. But this ring here, what's interesting about this ring, this is one that doesn't have chromium or titanium. This has something different. This is pure orichalcum, plus a little bit of tin. Have you heard of orichalcum?
I watched one of your previous interviews and it's fascinating. Please elaborate.
So what that means is this. We've got a ring that's pure orichalcum. And if you look up Wikipedia, we go there because we read about what they said about us and we're rubbish, so we figure they must be right. If we're rubbish, then it must be right.
Wikipedia.
What they say is orichalcum is a mythical metal found in a mythical place called Atlantis. So therefore it can't be true, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, because Atlantis doesn't exist, therefore orichalcum doesn't exist. That was the story. And it's funny because even in Wikipedia, they say it's a mythical metal, and then there's a picture there, isn't there, Evan, of orichalcum. Well, they said it's mythical. 2 paragraphs down is a picture of what they say is definitely orichalcum. It was found
off the coast of Sicily.
Sicily, 2016, and it's got the same 5 elements this one has. And the other one we've got, the other Atlantean ring that I'm not going to show you because it's in the naughty corner. It's a dangerous ring. What we found is it's exactly the same components. But what's fascinating is the Roman orichalcum, which was found, you'll find.
There we go.
Oh, Evan's just got it up.
No, that's not me.
Oh, right.
I'm having a play with this new software.
There it is there. You can see a picture there. There it is, the non-mythical orichalcum. That's it there. So it's quite funny how they talk about this. The Romans made them into coins, right? Not into rings. But here's the interesting part. We've looked at the breakdown of the Sicilian orichalcum. Now, the Sicilian orichalcum is greater than 75% copper. The orichalcum we have is 73% copper. Their zinc is below 20%. Our zinc is 25.9%. Their 3 trace elements make up 5 to 10%. Our 3 trace elements, same ones, make up 0.5%. So yes, what you're seeing there is orichalcum, one form of orichalcum, right? Not the only form. The other form, the more refined form, is what we're talking about. Now, we now have 2 Atlantean rings. One you don't know about because we only got the analysis 2 days ago. And what's interesting about the second ring, which has the motif for Atlas on it, there's no picture for it yet. Sorry, guys, because we're still working on it. It came in 2 days ago. It has the motif for Atlas on it. And I looked at the components. And they're different in some respects, but here's what's very interesting. Orichalcum that we've got makes up 99.5% of the components. And then you've got 3 drops like homeopathy, 3 different things put in there, right? The new ring we've got, it's not 99.5% zinc and copper, it's 99.4% zinc and copper. Now, what are the other three? The other three they've got in there is they have virtually the same amount as iron as what's in ours. They also have the same amount of, what's the other one? Lead, nickel.
Nickel, yep.
But then there's one difference in the new one. The new one, the other one, the one I've got, the first one's got lead. This one's had the lead taken out. And they put exactly the same amount of lead, which is 2.289% of lead in the Atlantean one, the first one. It's 0.289% of gold. They've changed it. They put the gold in and they swapped around one element. Now, people might say, why did they do that? And I'll tell you why. Because it's got the insignia of Atlas. Now, we do know that the temple of Poseidon and Cleito, and Atlas is the son of Poseidon, was completely made in the center of orichalcum, everywhere, on the floors, on the ceilings, on the columns. And in the columns was the wisdom of Poseidon and Atlas. And then on the very top was a small gold cap. Now, this particular ring, the one I can't show you, I've got it with me somewhere. I'll go and get it. Could you go and get it in the bowl? Where the bones are, it's in the bowl. I can hold it up, yeah. I'll hold it up. It's that new, it's not even written about yet. This one, the difference is it's got the gold in there, but remember it's got the insignia for Atlas in there. I think this represents the temple, and that's why the lead was taken out and the gold was put in. Right, so here it is.
I reckon you guys listening and watching this now are going to be the first ones to see this.
There it is. I don't know if you're going to see it that way.
What a shame my new webcam hasn't arrived yet.
Yeah, it's a good teaser for when you do get the camera rocking.
Yep.
Yeah, what you will see, the insignia has got exactly the same motif that the other Atlantean rings got. That's why I knew they were similar. Then I found out what they did was they varied the amount of copper and zinc. And what they did was they added 18% more copper than the other one and 18% less zinc than the other one. But it still added up to the same, the two added up to nearly exactly the same components. Plus, when you've got the marking of this in here, and it's interesting, this ring was found not in Angkor Wat like the other three I spoke about. This ring was found in England, in the dirt, dug out about 25 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Yep.
And this lady's had it for 25 years, and until she saw the other Atlantean ring, she didn't know what it meant. But it's obviously Atlas. It's marked on here. When we get a better camera and we put some pictures up, you'll see it in more detail. But what that tells us, ladies and gentlemen, is that here I've got elements that don't exist according to all the history books, but they do exist. We have them, and we have the readouts for them. We've got stuff from Lemuria, has technology that we have only just discovered today, but they had it thousands of years before. So what that leaves us with, okay, what that leaves us with is this. What I've just shown you is a piece of jewelry that has content that's not from this planet. I've shown you jewelry that was made thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, but the titanium we only just discovered. We spoke about another one that's got chromium, but we only just put it in the machine recently. It's there to stop corrosion and keep it hard. Can you see why they put it into these rings? Which means they last forever. That ring I'm holding up here, wherever it is, that's got to be 4,000 to 5,000 years old. And some of it, man, it's still pretty strong. I mean, the ring itself is knocked around a bit, but it's still there. It's still going, and it's an identical color to the other ring I've got, the orichalcum ring that I've hidden. In fact, I know that the zinc and copper in this one is nearly the same. In fact, all of the elements are the same, except all Lemurian rings always have 1.1 to 1.3% of tin placed in them. Every one of the Lemurian rings has that, and that's how you can tell the difference between the two. Now, when you have 5 or 6 rings, you can make that out. You can work it out because you can compare, which is what we have. We actually have 6 rings of the two there. What it tells us is we have alien metal in here. We have technology that we only just discovered in here now. So what does it tell us about our history? It tells us 2 things. Our history is made of contact with non-terrestrial beings that have been heavily involved in our development. And our history has also shown us that we had technology the equal of today thousands of years before. When Angkor Wat was part of Lemuria, when Australia was part of Lemuria, which is why these rings are coming back to Australia. Not so much Angkor Wat, but they're coming back to Australia because Australia was the last major landmass. Angkor Wat is like the coastal fringe that stayed above the land when the rest submerged, and Australia is the main part left. So they come back here. Why did the Atlantean rings come back here, Evan? I don't know that one.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
That's a rhetorical question.
That's a rhetorical question. I'm going to ask Phil. Phil, why is it we have two Atlantean rings here? One was found in England, of course, but the other one, as you know, was found 1.5 meters beneath the surface in Australia at Hill End, which is obviously a gold mining area, which is where you would put an orichalcum ring, wouldn't you? Next to gold again. That wasn't a coincidence. But the question is that if you go to Atlantis and you want to go to the furthest place in the world from Atlantis, you'd probably end up in Australia. So why was it buried here? 1.5 meters beneath the surface. And going on archaeology today, that would mean it has to be at least 30,000 years old. Why did they bury it here? And why was it tainted? And why is it so friggin' evil?
Well, you know, it's funny because we can draw some parallels with some of Professor Tolkien's work about you know, the allegorical journey of these pieces of, you know, ostensibly inanimate objects. They somehow find their ways to new locations, and I've come across many people with stories of these, you know, of this nature, and you know, and it's just. The truth is stranger than fiction, man. You know,
it's not fiction. Remember, Tolkien was not a writer. He was not a novelist. He was a linguist.
Right, that's right. He was, yeah.
He was a linguist with a PhD in language. And guess what language he studied mainly? The Scandinavian language. Guess where the ring story came from? It's, according to Wikipedia, a Scandinavian myth. Remember, the myth is this. There were 3 rings that ruled the world. The 3 rings we're talking about, we've got 2 of them from Atlantis. But there were 3 rings in Lemuria too. And those rings always represent animals. They've got a different way of approaching this. We believe all the rings were made in Lemuria. And some were sent to Atlantis where they put the markings on there. But I've got to make a point. Tolkien's story, you can call it a legend or a myth if you want, but don't call it fictional because it wasn't done that way. He read this myth. And yeah, he added Bilbo Baggins in and he put a few things in to make it more interesting and stuff like that. But the myth was the base of his story. And his story is, I've got to tell you one part of the story, the Atlantean ring that is evil. And you probably know a bit about that because you read the story there.
Just do a little connection here.
Yeah.
Right, Scandinavia, Finnish.
Yeah.
Finnish is related to Hungarian.
Yeah.
And we know that they spoke Hungarian here in Australia.
Hungarian is actually spoken in Australia.
So there's the
link.
possible link.
Yeah, we do know that for
Hungary
fact.
to Australia.
In fact, we know a professor when he was working in the Snowy Mountains in the 1950s, and he had a gang because he was a professor, so they let him run the gang of labourers. They wouldn't give him a job as a professor, would they? And there he met some Darkingon elders, and they spoke in language, and they spoke in Hungarian for half an hour, and they understood everything they said. Wow. And the rest of his life, to the time he died, he was trying to prove, and he's working with Sydney Uni, wasn't he? And he said they've proven it. He was trying to prove that Magyar is actually original. So what I'm getting at with this is, there's links there to begin with, but Tolkien got one other part right. He said if you wear the ring, it overtakes the person who owns it. And I can tell you, I don't wear the other ring anymore. Evan hasn't seen it for about 3 months, have you?
Mm.
We've had some major issues with that ring because it's pure evil. It's got the chrysalis of pure evil within it. It was cut, and you can see the cut on it. It was a bad cut. It ruined the whole ring, and it was condensed, and something was put inside it. Now, I'm not going to go into details, but Evan, at one stage, that ring was stolen from me. And all I can say is what came out of it was pure evil, because that person actually put up on Facebook and told everyone with the ring she was going to kill both of us, didn't she? Mm-hmm. And she tried to. She actually tried to do it. And I can tell you this, Evan is allergic to ticks. We were attacked in the middle of winter, and we live in a tropical region. We live near Byron Bay, and there's no ticks in winter. And he went to bed with no ticks. We got attacked that night, and he woke up with 30 the next day in the bed. And he went to bed and he had none. So 30 ticks got on him during the night. And I nearly got killed because it was attacking me and him all night long. So we know about these rings. And the reason I used to wear the ring on my finger, and I did ask someone, did I make a mistake? Because I didn't know for a couple of days what it was. I just get a rock and I hold it. Whatever it is, I get and hold it for a while, so I get used to it. And I was asked, is it too late? And they said, way too late. So the part about...
It's gone full Smeagol.
Yeah, the part about it...
Full Smeagol.
Yeah, I've done a full Smeagol, believe me, because at the moment, I won't wear it. And that ring, by the way, I can tell you, before I got it, someone else had it. And that was Roz, didn't she? And she used to tell us that we're doing the same thing all the time. They put it on the kitchen table, and they go back 2 minutes later, it was gone for 3-4 days. It would disappear and reappear at will all the time. She doesn't like that ring, does she? Hates it. Hates it. I won't wear it anymore because it wasn't doing me any good. Okay, it was doing me no good whatsoever because it's just pure evil. And what it does is it gets in your head and tells you things that you don't want to hear. So when Tolkien was talking about that, I do wear this ring. This ring now I wear all the time, the Lemurian ring, because there's nothing evil in it. And what I can say about this last ring, whoa, just dropped it. The last Atlantean ring that came in, I have put this on my finger because there's no cut on it, is there? It hasn't been bastardized like the other one was.
No, I mean, I've had more of an inclination to want to touch that ring than in any of the other ones.
And this ring doesn't mind that ring, it told me. This ring said it hated the Lemurian Atlantean ring, and if I ever touched the Atlantean ring, well, this was here, it would tell me I don't want it. They hate each other. And I'm talking about the rings now as if they have, a bit like what Tolkien said. And what I'm saying is that don't dismiss Tolkien's story as a complete myth. Well, yes, dismiss it as a myth, but understand that most myths and legends are based on fact. Because you've got to remember, there was no history book written until quite recently. The first history book I know of is possibly, well, the Bible to an extent has some history in it, and so does the Bhagavad Gita, doesn't it? It has a little bit of history.
Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yeah, but all those things are written in sort of scriptures. Pure history hasn't been written until about 4,000 years ago. Before that, it was always involved within scriptures and within myths, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, that ring, when Tolkien spoke about that, the Lemurian rings are not evil. The Atlantean rings, of the two we've got, one is half good, half bad. I think the other one's okay. And the third one, because there are three, Tolkien was right, that never got destroyed in a volcano. He got that wrong. Bilbo never dropped it in the volcano. It's been worn. Now, who's wearing it? It'll be somebody that's obviously reptilian and draconian. And it'll be somebody who tells the Rothschilds and all the others what to do. And it'll be the person who's running the show. They'll be wearing that ring. And I've been told time after time, the two rings we've got, we can't turn on. We're trying to. And I tried to turn on the other ring, and that didn't work out well at all. It just got out of control. Maybe this ring is better and we can turn this one on. I have a ceremony for the rings that works. But what I am going to say is, Phil, throughout all of this, my question is, why have all these rings and skulls, and of course the stones, you know, we've got them too, why are they all turning up now? Why didn't they turn up 100 years ago, or 500 years from now? Why is all this stuff turning up at the same time this prophecy is taking place? And I believe the reason why the skulls turned up and were found, particularly turned up with me, because it had some things to sort out with me, didn't it?
It did, yes.
Yes, the skull nearly killed me. It hates me. We had to get through a few issues with the skull, and it wasn't a good start for 6 months. I was on death's door for about 6 months straight. But we're over it now. We're friends. We're mates now. I can touch it and get on with it, and it's all fine. I won't touch it with fingers as such, because no one's allowed to, because if you do, you taint it with your DNA. You can't do that. So people say, can I touch it? I said, no, you can't touch it. And why should you touch it anyway? But my point is, why is all this turning up now? Why have we got so much evidence that proves that history is wrong? And that's probably why the government wants to put me in jail, because they know, and the reason why they won't take me to court is when they saw that skull was completely made, they gave up. The government stopped trying to put me in court. That's why I got that letter. Because if we went to court, I'd take that in as evidence and say the government's trying to stop me from showing people this is the truth. And I'll take this and say, well, who made it? Oh, the guy that worked for the Australian Museum, he does their skulls, he made it for us, and he hates the Australian Museum, by the way. He made it. Oh, okay, then it was made by an expert, because we love experts, don't we? So therefore, we have experts. Where did I get the reading for that skull? Where did I get the reading for the ring? I got it from an expert. I got it from the best machine in this country that reads that. Where did I get the one for that one where there's no metal? I got it from a laboratory in a university. So we're playing by their rules. We play by their games all the time. And that makes it hard for them, because all we're doing is we are bringing other people. Like when we're bringing other people in, they'll talk about their experiences. Mary Robb will talk about the dealings with children who've been taken by aliens and tutored.
Jump in here. Sorry to interrupt. Is this the conference that's coming up? Because this would be a great time to do some do a shameless plug for that, guys. You just go for it, right?
Yeah, we're running out of time. I think we should.
So looking at the time in New Zealand, you're 2 hours ahead of us. So I'm thinking it's 9 a.m. the 12th of July for us. So same day for you guys,
11.
Which should be 11 a.m. on the Sunday for you guys.
And it's a watchable thing for 7 days. You don't have to watch it all at once.
Yeah.
You can come back to it, but you can't tape it. You can't burn it, because we've got a thing called intellectual property right. In some of the people, like last time we had an elder that he wanted it up for 7 days, but he didn't want it burned. And we use a lot of elders, and we do this a lot. So what we're doing is you've got 7 days to listen to all of it. And we've got, as we mentioned, Mary Robb, she's going to talk about what comes next, because she's talking about the children the aliens have chosen and geared them up and given them information to get them ready for that. And I think that's important. I know Barry Eaton, he's very much into past lives and contacting your past lives. Well, that gets back to the other part of this story, is what were we like before? Well, you know what? The person who can tell you what you were like before is yourself. Not a book, but you've incarnated many, many times, and all that information is there. You can find out the truth without reading any book, because most books lie anyway. It's particularly history books. So therefore, you can find that yourself. So Barry does that, and we feel like, yeah, that's another part of this story too. Now, Leah is cursed because she remembers her past lives, and it's not a great thing. It's not a great thing to remember all your past lives and everything down to the finest details about what colour your nails were on a given day. And she was actually incarnated once when Atlantis fell. And I thought, well, hang on for a sec. I think that would be a good story too, because she can talk about what Atlantis was like and why it fell, and then we can compare that to what we've got today. And you're going to find, with the exception of their technology, because they overused crystals, didn't they?
Yeah.
They killed the crystals, and the crystals turn on to an extent. With the exception of the technology, you could take everything out and say that's us today. We're just misusing a different type of technology. We're using petrochemicals and stuff like that, but nothing else is different. So each one of those particular presentations is a different part of this story. And further on, the next one we're going to do, if it's not carry on, will be just all blackfellas. We're lining that up next. We're going to finish with all blackfellas talking about this story too. We want to try and do this from different points of view, because, and you don't have to watch part 1 to pick up part 2. It's the same story, just different angles from it. And then part 3 is just the blackfella story again. So they don't rely on each other. You cannot watch one and watch the next one. So that's not an issue.
Yeah, and you can come and go throughout the day. There's like your system here, there's ability for people to communicate with each other via text as we go. There'll be slideshows and everything like that. So, and that's your little, if you want to know more, that link's just come up on the screen there. It will,
And our job in this is to make sure, because they're giving pieces of information where they're giving their heartfelt belief of what they know. But I was a high school teacher and a primary school teacher. I've been a principal. I've been in the executive, and I do know that we've all been conditioned. I know what schooling does. And I do know that we've been so badly conditioned that we have to knock that conditioning out first before people can accept what people are going to say and trust them. So our job in this is we'll talk about sites in Australia that are obviously have got an alien story. And of course, the Standing Stone site is the one we'll focus on there. That will be our focus. We won't be doing the archaeology we did next time, and we're lucky. because we could do archaeology 5 or 6 times in a row and never repeat ourselves. We've done about 70 sites, so it's not hard. It's easy for us because we just sit here and wait for people to ring us each day and say we've got another one. And unless it's outrageously brilliant, we don't go near it. It's got to be new technology or alien influence, or we're not interested. And the funny part is, with those particularly, you think they'd be pretty hard, we just get swamped, don't we, Evan?
Yeah.
We got a list of places we can't get to, and we just can't get to them all. So it's easy. We always say is if it's alien or unusual technology that doesn't belong, and that means we get a heaps of it. And what we do each time is we'll do other archaeology this time, but what we rely on primarily is we don't go too much into the mystical. I mean, we do a bit. We let the other mob do that. We go into the pragmatic and the empirical. And when you finish with us, I think your doubts are gone. And your training, when you went to school, when some people said little green men and stuff like that, and you got to laugh at, that's ridiculous. And the fact that original people just had stick, stone and bone technology. Now, we prove that's wrong. We can show you 1,000 instances of stuff to prove that's wrong. So at the end of that, by the time you finish with us, then we've cleaned your head out. We've got all the rubbish that's been put in there, and then you're open to the truth. Now, these people will give a subjective viewpoint, and you can say, oh, yeah, but that's their viewpoint. But remember, we did the objective part. We quietened down that beast. Don't let it come back for the rest of it. We quietened that down, and we proved to you that aliens were here. And we proved to you that we had technology we haven't even come close to today. I've seen things on rocks that we can't do today. We proved that. All that's left now is for you to get on board and say, okay, we've done now, they were here. Let's now do the important part of this. Why did they come? And honestly, ladies and gentlemen, that's really all that's important. And can I close? Because I suppose we better soon. I want to close by sharing with you one thing, because not everyone's going to come to our website on the day. And even if they do, I'm going to say the same thing I'm going to say now. I want to close with this. When I was talking to this elder the first time about the change and the fact that so many people are going to be sent away from here, it wasn't a funny joke. It was very serious, but there was a lot of laughter. And I was the one who created the laughter, wasn't I? Because at the end of this, I heard all of what he said, and I said, okay, you held the rocks, and I told him to hold rocks that kill. And I said, if you're lying, I'll kill you. You're going to hold them. He said, I'll hold them. And Evan hasn't touched my rocks, has he, Evan? Nobody but me ever touches the rocks. But sometimes I give it to a person for a reason. In this case, I gave him about 5 or 6 rocks, killing rocks, knowing damn well they kill him. And anyway, he held them through the whole thing, very serious business. And at the very end, I said to him this, I said, okay, let's say the thing is all going to happen. I said, what percentage are you going to make it? And I figured we should finish with this. He said, will you have a guess? I said, okay, I'll have a guess. Okay, I'll have a guess. And I was thinking about what Uncle Marbach told me about love. I said, yeah, a lot of people don't get this. They don't get what we're on about. They think we're crazy. But I've seen people who lay down their life for others, and they're good people. And I play with people at tennis. When I was being killed by the skull, they were ringing up asking how I was, weren't they? And they cared for me. Yeah. I said, I'm going to include them. I'm going to say 30 to 25% of people are going to go to the other side. And he laughed his head off. I thought, oh, it's a bit different. I didn't expect any laughter. And I said, did I go too low? He said, oh, no. Way too high. Have another go. Oh, I said, oh, okay. All right. I said, I'll go 10%, but I don't believe that. He said, no, nor do I. He laughed at me again. He said, go low. He said, I'm not going lower than that. I refuse to. You're wrong. He said, no, the elder said 2 to 3%. And we had an argument. And I said, no, you're wrong, and I'm going to prove it. I said, I know people, like I told you before, that really cared about what they're doing. I play them at tennis. They care about other people. They really understand love. They got that right. He said, oh, good. They got one subject right. What about the one about why we're here? I said, what do you mean? Do they understand why we're here? What our role is, our incarnation, the fact there are other beings here? No. I said, well, this is a university. There's 2 subjects to be learned. You learn love, and you also learn, and this is the most important thing, what the purpose of life is. You've got to do both. You can't just do one and walk away and say, I love everything. You've got to understand the whole business. It's no good getting one of the 2 subjects right. They failed. Oh, okay. I said, all right, well, I'm going to go 10%. He said, why are you going to do that? Because those are the people who get both of them. There's 10% that are aware of this, and they're into the love part, so they're okay. He said, oh, really, are they? I said, oh, no, here we go. He said, right then. He said, now tell me about that 10%. Do any of those people run into idiots that give them a hard time? I said, oh, yeah, plenty of them. That's a given. So, oh, really, do they? So, oh, yeah, they're shocking. He said, do they say things about that? Oh, they get pretty upset. They say bad things. And he said, do they tell people about that? Sometimes they do. I said, oh, she said, so they're gossiping, are they? Well, these negative comments they make. Do you know what negative comments make? Do you know what negative thoughts? Do they have a force? I said, yeah, they do. Ah, he said, so you're going to tell me these people have been incarnating hundreds of times and in their spare times, they're creating bad energy. Do you think the earth needs more bad energy? I said, no. He said, well, what use are they to us? They haven't got it right. They're putting out, they're infecting this planet with bad energy. There's enough already. They can't come. I said, all right. I'm going to 5% because the ones that didn't whinge and stuff like that, I reckon they still got 5%. He said, hang on for a sec before you do that. Have you ever run into people that give you, annoy you? Oh, yeah. What do you think about them? Oh, I think they're a piece of shit. Do you think like that? Do you think badly about them? Yeah, I do a bit, yeah. And how does that make you feel? No, not real good. He said, that's because you're creating bad energy, aren't you? I said, yeah, but I didn't speak. He said, do you really think it makes any difference whether you say it aloud or think it? And I begrudgingly said, think it. I said, well, that means I'm not coming. I'm with the other mob. There's no way I'm going to get there because I run into fools every day.
I run into them on Facebook.
Oh, yes, you do too. And
it's a popular place for them.
Yeah, I said, that's why it's 2%. He said, because if they're having negative thoughts, they haven't passed. I said, well, I won't make it. He said, no, it's not like that. He said, remember this, you'll be judged on one day. On the 21st of December, when you call at 9 p.m., that's when you've got to be like that. You can be like that before that. If there's someone that causes you grief, go to them, go to their face and tell them, we accept that. You can disagree with someone, but you can't infect the planet with bad thoughts. There's enough there already. There are people saying bad things every day, and you must understand humans create energy with thoughts. So if you're thinking bad things about people, you're no good to us. We can't call you at 9 o'clock because you are clouded with negative thoughts you haven't cleaned out of your head. Your mind must be cleared, and if it's not cleared, what use are you to us? And if you can't help us then, how will you help us in the past? So, ladies and gentlemen, I did get down to 2 to 3%, but that's changed. That's changed. This virus did something I never expected, and that's why I want to close with this. Where we are in New South Wales, we actually had a situation where we could be locked down, but you could go out for a walk.
Mm.
Now, that meant you could go outside and keep away from each other. And I play tennis a lot. I still play on the circuit a bit. I'm still a very good tennis player. And I go and practice every day on a wall that's up in a park up there. And every day I go up there, it's a massive park, a couple of 100 acres. I'd see no one there. No one come up there and use the swings and the playground area. They never used it. But come the virus, all of a sudden parents were taking their children up there and they were running around screaming and laughing. Never happened before. And people, hundreds of people were going up there and talking to each other and behaving like humans. Now, what they weren't doing is pressing the buttons on their computer and playing games. The kids were running around catching a ball. The parents were playing with them. They were laughing and they were behaving like humans again. They weren't behaving like slaves. And what's come out of this virus is that people have realized this is a sort of symbolic of the system we're in. It's falling apart. And now people are saying, I don't want to go back to what I had before. I don't want to go back and work each day and become a slave. They're starting to see things. So this virus, for all the bad things that's happened, because often out of a cloud, there's always a silver lining. So what I'm seeing now is that 2 to 3% my eldest told me about it. I watched the parents playing with their children saying, they weren't doing that before. They're becoming more like humans. They could become part of the 4 to 5 to 6% that's growing. And I think that's what's happening. I don't think it will be 2 to 3%. The elder said that was the number when I asked.
Yeah, that was before any of this happened.
Before any of this happened. And a lot of people now are looking at society and saying, and people should say this, they should ask themselves, the people who run the country are the rich ones, the Gates, the cabal, and they're more than likely the ones who released this virus. And they will continue running the world. Do you want that? And a lot of people now know they don't want that. And they know this is wrong. And they know that nothing will change this system while they run it, and they want to keep running it. What this virus is showing us is that we don't need them anymore. They thought this was going to make us fearful, and it has made a lot of people fearful. What they didn't expect is others would wake up, and they have. So it goes both ways, ladies and gentlemen. The ring turned up now. The skulls have turned up now. All the rings have turned up. The rocks have turned up. They're all getting ready. They're getting ready to be part of this change. These rocks, they make a portable portal of incredibly powerful energy. We've got around 200 rocks. When put together, they really hum. They will permanently be on a sacred place before the year's out in South Australia, touch wood. The skulls now are ready. The rings are ready. Everything's ready now to start. All they're waiting for is the 21st of December at 9 o'clock in the evening. And that's where the men will be at Uluru. And the women, they'll be somewhere else, which I'm not allowed to know. I do know, but I'm not going to say it aloud. They're doing their own ceremony. It's their business. And we're all men here, so we can't talk about it. But you've got to remember, ladies and gentlemen, the oldest culture in the world are the original people. They're the keepers of the wisdom, and some of them still have it. We met one, and he passed on 2 years ago, and his name was Kono. He was living old way. He was disappearing. He was talking to animals. What if that was our future? We could talk to all the animals. We could come and go as we pleased. And if I want to communicate with someone, I could do it telepathically. And if I telepathically communicate with you, you could never lie to me. Because you know yourself when you're lying. You know you're lying. And telepathy can't lie. My elders have told me the first language was telepathy. And then when we started to speak, then we didn't trust each other because we couldn't tell whether we're telling the truth or a lie. So when we go back in the future, no one can lie. You know what? If no one can lie, this is going to be heaven on earth. It's that simple. That means I can trust every human I meet. Think about that. Can you do that today? No, you can't. Well, in the future, I could sit down with a kangaroo. I could sit down with an owl. I could sit down with a human and know what they were thinking. And I could trust them. Now, if that isn't better than what we've got now, then you're living on the wrong planet and you need to go because there's no point staying there anymore. That's what this planet is supposed to be about. We're supposed to be like that ring I showed you, which had 2 monkeys, 2 pigs, and 2 elephants on there. Lemurians regarded them as equal as us. The original people regard all animals as equal to humans. You'll find that most indigenous people regard animals as equal to us. Beware of a religion that places humans above animals. That's doomed to fail. And think about it. The religions we rely on today do that. Most of them do. Christianity, Islam, Judaism, they treat animals as protein. I think that's what the chefs call meat now, don't they? Call protein, don't they?
Or the hero.
Yeah, we call it
hero.
Hero, that's right. Hero of the dish is the protein, but we don't call it dead flesh with blood, do we? My point
Burnt animal carcasses.
Yes, no, we don't call that. That wouldn't sound good on the cooking show. Let's pull out a dead carcass dripping in blood. That wouldn't sound right. But why don't we just call it protein? That sounds much better. Well, my point is this, that our new religion, everyone will be equal. Everyone will be equal. You got to remember when original people went hunting, they would dance for hours before they went out to get the animal. And if the animal didn't give itself to them, they come back and blame one of the dancers for not giving enough respect to the spirit of that animal before they took them. And if your animal is a snake and it's killed in front of you, you must cry because you lost your brother, you lost your sister. That's how they used to work things. We need that back again. We need all those sort of thinkings back again, where everyone lives together. Because at the moment, we don't live with nature. We're fighting nature every day, and that's not working anymore. And nature is saying, heal me from inside and do it yourself. And if you can't, I'll heal the place and I'll get rid of you. Don't need you anymore. You've ruined the place. The waters will come. The earth will flip. And don't worry, it's done it before. Don't think it hasn't happened before. The North and South Pole have flipped and the waters run around. It's done it before and it's prepared to do it again. And it all comes down to that day. And if that day happens, then there are 6 sites, 5 in Australia and 1 in your country. Which island are you on, north or south?
I'm in Auckland in the North Island.
North Island. My suspicion is, but I don't know if that's true. I'm not just saying this to make you feel better. My suspicion is on the North Island. There's a site somewhere on the North Island that is as important as Uluru. Because these 6 sites, don't get carried away about the fact that Spark stays at Uluru. It's got to get to these 6 sites before it can go other places. They work as a group together, those 6 sites. Uluru might be the navel because it's the centre point, because you go out to Kimberley one way, down to South Australia another one out to Carrion, one up near Mullumbimby, and places like that. But one, we only learned about this, what?
About a month ago.
2 months, maybe.
2 months,
we didn't know New Zealand was part of this. We just thought it was purely Australia. But no, you've got a site somewhere on one of your islands that's the equal of all of our sites. Now, the sites I'm talking about are some of the most important sites in the world. You got one too. You probably got more than one, but there's one where that energy is going to. And from there, I would suggest you'll be the place where you launch off to South America and America. We'll be launching off to sort of Asia, Africa, and Europe that way. But you're closer to that site, so I figure that's where the energy from that site will go across to the Americas, because you're much closer than we are. That's my take, but that's just my opinion. I've not been told that by elders. We're only just dealing with the fact New Zealand's part of it, so we still don't know enough about that. But the guy who said that's coming up to see us soon, isn't he?
Yeah.
I've asked him to come up.
We'll have some more info.
And I want to quiz him on New Zealand. I want to find out where it is.
It'd be great to I don't know. Have you heard of a couple of chaps from New Zealand who are social historians by the name of Barry Brailsford or Gary Cook?
Yes.
Evan Wood knows about them, because I don't look at computers or anything electronic.
Yeah, because they have a they'd be great for you guys to connect to if you haven't already. When you've got further information, because they've also got a wealth of knowledge like yourselves. But hey guys, look, we've reached the top of the second hour here, and this has just been an amazing adventure, and we could just go on and on and on. And I want to get you both back, especially after the conference, maybe after the time period has finished, and to get a recap on what's going on. And there's so much to process here. I'm sure all the listeners are probably in a bit of a daze, the viewers and that. And I just want to say to you both, thank you so much for the work you do. And I know that you put yourself in harm's way here and on so many angles. But this is the interface here. We need to share these teachings, because the wisdom's out there, but not everyone that knows is going to share it. And so this is what I'm doing with my YouTube channel here is that I'm following lots of people, and I'm like, oh man, we need to get this information out more. There's so much censorship going on. There is definitely a hindrance operating in the background that's stalling the progress of human evolution. We're all being driven by our emotional states. That's all that the media does, is to keep us locked in this base instinct sort of operating zone. And so Yeah. And so, so ladies and gentlemen, please take time to go and check out Stephen and Evan's website, forgottenorigin.com. It's scrolling at the bottom there. Go and check out ancestry.net, which is on the banner at the bottom there too. Go and check these two guys out. There's heaps and heaps of interviews with them. I want to say thank you so much, gentlemen.
Pleasure. And thank you for our time. We appreciate it, mate. Good on you. It's nice to talk to New Zealand finally. Yeah. We're really happy to do that.
That's awesome. If I could just get you to stick around for just 2 shakes after I end the broadcast, and just to close up. But to all the watchers and listeners out there in YouTube world, thank you so much. And I look forward to doing the next broadcast with you all soon. This is Phil Rice from Thread to Threshold. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right.